What's up, everybody? Brian Salter here, and today I'm going to show you something that might be eye-opening. For some of you it might be old news, but nevertheless we're going to put some well-known piston rings to the test. And I'm going to show you the difference between a standard hone and one that we do here. Now, in other videos I've talked about our honing process, which basically we'll cut in, the crosshatch pattern of our choice, and it's sometimes different for different jobs. At the end, I will then use what's called a carbide brush. Now, a carbide brush is not soft. It sounds hard. It sounds like a soft brush, like a toothbrush or hairbrush, but it's not. It's actually very hard. And it's basically impregnated with carbide of some sort. I haven't even looked into how they make it. I really don't care how they make it. But I was taught this by, cup teams way long ago, probably doing it 25 years, close to that. And what it does is it knocks the peaks of your hone off. It's a plateau hone. Now, there are other ways to do that, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So today we're going to do a ring drag test with a standard 1.5 millimeter ring, 3 millimeter oil ring, gas ported from Trick Flow Summit Racing. We're going to do how much resistance does that give us. And then I'm going to do a plateau hone finish. I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to show you what to buy to do it. You can do this at home. And then we're going to do another drag test. And I'm going to show you what happens. A couple benefits, right? One of the reasons we did plateau honing on cup stuff was because we used cylinder pressure to force the rings out to get our seal. And we were under a tremendous amount of vacuum. Unlike drag engines, when you're running a five-stage Barnes, such as this one here, I'll show you. If you guys see me teach classes sometimes and I'm on the big dry erase board, that's another shop I have. I've left my dry erase, my dry sump pumps there. So I have a couple five-stage Barnes. I have an old Weaver style. Yeah, I thought I had them. Here, I'm getting ready to do a couple dry sump motors, so I don't show that kind of stuff. The customers don't really like it. They're very secretive, so you don't see me doing a lot of it. But I do have one that the guy said I could show you guys. So that'll be coming up, but I don't know when. Anyways, when you run a five-stage Barnes or 6 or however many stages, the stages basically you have an oil supply and you have the other parts of that are suction. Depending on how much work and effort you want to put into it, you can have a suction at every point. And one of the things that I do is I will section my oil pan. So at each main cap, I make that a compartment. And I hope you're paying attention to this, because this is actually secretive information for years. Not so much now, but if you want to pick your engine up, guys, this is the way to do it. So pay attention. What I do is I compartmentalize my oil pan. So at each main cap, that becomes a compartment. And it takes some fabricating, takes some welding, but you weld in a little plate that's shaped to your main cap, and each one of your caps now becomes a compartment. In that compartment, what I do is I have probably either a -10 or -12. These are AN sizes. Suction lines. So each compartment now will have its own suction line. I have a suction line that goes in the lifter valley area, because all that gets filled in, epoxied, where no oil can escape. It has to be sucked out. And of course you have catch screens in front of all these lines. That's very, very important. And then I have the main pressure feed for the oil. Usually I put them in the front of the block. Usually a -10 or so will feed the block. And then you have like a return hose at the top of the pump, usually about size 16. That will go through a big filter into your 3 to 4 gallon tank, whichever you're using. Really simple setup, expensive to do it all the first time. And of course, if you're running lightweight hoses with the liner so the vacuum doesn't suck them shut, those hoses are very expensive. And we used to get everything made by CV Products. CV Products would come out to my shop and actually plumb the engine for me because I got so tired of doing it. They had a really great service. They would send a technician out. He would plumb the engine right there for us. And nice job. I mean, very nice job. The main thing when making hoses is making sure there's no trash in them when you're done. You can make sure there's no debris of the hose from the cutting and shavings. Make sure they're out of the hoses. Very, very important that one is. Anyways, because we ran a Plateau hone, very slick. Okay, very slick. I could take my piston and push it in with one little finger with no effort and roll the engine around with one little finger, all 8 pistons in the block. If it's a wet sump engine with rings that small, like 28, 29 thousandths rings, you're going to have some oil consumption, probably a little bit. But with a high vacuum, the way we beveled everything to catch the compression and push the rings out, it wasn't a big deal for us. However, what I found is the break-in material in the oil would be almost non-existent. It wouldn't change colors. You wouldn't have the oily, metally swirl marks you see in some break-in oils, after engine break-ins. So by Plateau honing, not only are you gaining some horsepower if done correctly, but you're also getting rid of metal debris. Hang on, let me get rid of this. People have blown my phone up. You're getting rid of metal debris that would get in your oil normally. So just imagine, let's see. Just imagine you hone, and you have a peak. You plateau, that peak is now gone. So when the rings are going up and down the bore, those points to where it's cut, the hole marks, they're already gone. You wash them out with soap and water before you assemble the engine because your Plateau finish knocked that off. So this is going to provide a slicker surface for the rings. You still got your deep hone to hold oil, and you won't have the break-in material in your oil. And it makes power, which is what we're all about. So today I want to show you the differences that will make. And is it worth your time? And how can you do it without having to rely on expensive machine processes? So stay tuned. I'm going to roll this block outside and show you how to do it. Part of making big power is getting rid of parasitic drag, which is what this video is about. So if your crankshaft doesn't spin like this, then you need to get back to work. Thing is, I got 3 main caps torqued down, and it actually spins better with all 5 torqued down, believe it or not. That's what I'm talking about. Alright, so this here is what we're going to talk about in this video. Look at this cylinder hole. Nothing wrong with it. Nice finish. Pretty smooth to the touch. And we're going to make it even better. So we're going to do a piston drag test with a standard cylinder hone. I think this is finished with a 320 grit. I can't remember, sorry. But I'm going to show you what it's like to put a Plateau finish on it and that you can do at home. The whole purpose of this video is to show you that you can do this at your own house. Alright, stand by. Alright, I'm going to set the gap on this engine at 24. Here's how we do this. Make sure you can see what I'm doing here. Trying to keep it. I only have about 3 or 4 rings left to do. Alright. And ironically, on the second ring, I only have to grind until the indicator reads 24. But the top ring, I had to cut a bunch. Alright. Being very gentle because the camera's in my way, so I don't want to screw up here. There we go. Nice. Okay. We'll test fit it. Alright, we're going to test fit it now. I do keep a really thick towel under my block in case something falls, it doesn't ding it up. Let's see. This where you can see a little bit better. There we go. I'll put the gap about here where you can see what I'm doing. Up here to the top. And my feeler gauge is, oh gosh, can you read it? 24 is on the tip, 26 is on the other side. Oh boy, that is just beautiful. There you go, guys. Perfect. Now the last thing is, a lot of times I'll just, each set of rings is filed for its own hole. And if you hone the block perfectly true, it really doesn't matter. And of course, you know, we strive to do that. Get each hole exactly the same size. But it's also a very good habit to do that. So when you file rings, file them for a hole and leave them there. Now the last step is the old ring check. You've heard me preach on this before, so just going to stick it in here. I'm going to look at the gap and see where we are. And that ring is clearly has there you go. We're good on the gap right here. Lastly, I want to check, I'm going to back up here. Lastly, we want to check our oil expander ring, or scraper as the old timers used to call it. And I want to make sure this is out against the wall, and look, it's not buckling up together, okay? So this one, out of the box, is perfectly fine. Just so many I get will be too large and they get all kinked up in the bore. And if they do, I trim them. This is how they should fit right here. Perfect. Just like that. Alright, so I've got the one piston in with a standard hone that most shops would do. Nothing special. The rings are gapped at 24. Everything's perfect. It's lubricated. What I'm going to show you is how much drag traditional rings and honing is in your engine. So this is one piston, and you're going to clearly see that one piston is 5 foot-pounds of resistance. You're going to clearly see this, so hang tight. Alright, I've got everything set up. I'm going to zoom in on this here dial, Okay. Now what you're going to see is, as I start to pull on it, you're going to see this needle move, right? Whatever number it shows is how many foot-pounds it is. So this is 5, this is 10, this is 15, this is 20. Everybody got it? I'm going to pull this very gently. Okay? Now once you see, just so you know, once you see the zero, this whole face start to go to the right, then you know the crank is moving. Here we go, pulling. Right there, I'm moving. So you are at 5. Get it back over here. We are at 5 foot-pounds of resistance on that hone and ring package. Here we go. And actually, if you look at my needle, it's pretty centered. So it's all over 5. It's all over 5. All right, everybody see that? Now what I'm going to do, hang on. All right, so I wanted you to clearly see what I was doing. So you've got one piston in the hole, traditional hone, and I'm doing this now before I do the final wash. So I'm going to show you the difference from a traditional hone, the drag it creates, versus a Plateau hone. All right, so this is a tool we're using. It's actually brand new. I wanted to make sure I got a one that wasn't banged up, the numbers missing, just to show you this. Okay, so what I'm going to be using is something that you can use, and this is from Wiseco. I've been using this for, I don't know, quite a while. If I don't use the carbide brush that actually goes into the Sunning CV616, that's the one I had for many years. If I don't have the carbide brush that goes into that head, then I use one of these. And this is a Wiseco nylon soft hone. Guys, you're about to see what this does. This will help you plateau the cylinder, and it knocks down the high peaks, any little scuff you may have made if you're doing cylinder work like I do, where you roll the deck or do something just off the wall like we do sometimes. This right here will clean it up for you. It does not remove metal, but it reduces drag, it helps ring seal, and it's good stuff. What do I do when I'm done with this? I take, just like I'm going to do with this, Dawn dishwashing detergent, really soapy bucket of water, wash everything down, blow it dry, put the thing together, you're ready to rock and roll. Okay? You can buy these at Summit Racing. You can buy it from Wiseco. It is called a nylon soft cylinder hone. They come in different sizes. This one cost me quite a bit because it's for a very large bore. I say quite a bit. It's like $110, $120. They come in different bore sizes because you don't want a humongous brush and a tiny bore. You can tear up your brush, and that's a little too much pressure on the bore. Okay, so they're designed to have so much pressure based on the size. Anyways, guys, that's why I'm showing you this. You can do this at home and make your engine build that much better. So here we go. All right, so we're back at the block, and boy, things are cramped in here right now. I've got engines hanging out the window sills around here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a drill. I'm going to remove this piston. Okay, this is the one we did the drag test on. I'm going to take this out. I'm going to run this in a few times, show you what the cylinder looks like, and we're going to reinstall it and do another drag test. All right, so stay tuned. Let me get this thing apart. Yep. Come on, big dog. I'm trying to do this. clearly. All right. Very carefully. Okay, so I'm going to lay this down out of the way. And let's get this show on the road. One more time, I'm going to show you what this actual traditional homes look like. That's traditional. Okay, it is pretty slick. Pretty slick. We're going to make it better. Okay, I've got this installed. I like to use the WD-40. And here we go. Now, your feed and speed is important here. Feed is how fast up and down you're going. And the speed would be the speed of your RPMs. Okay? It's important to get the right crosshatch. Alright, that was 30 strokes. Now, I'll tell you some of the best rags when you're doing assembly work is just a good old washed t-shirt. Alright, here we go. I'm going to bring you in close. Let's wipe this down. And I cannot tell you, oh my gosh, that feels very slick. Amazing. But I already knew that. But I want you to know that. That's why I'm here. Check out my home job by hand. Let's get this over here. Okay, so we got before, after, and that's back out as I can get. That is, whew, that looks great. Look at my cross hatches. See that? Nice pretty X's. It's almost identical to the machine. That's called doing this a long time. You can do it though. I want to encourage you. You can do it. Let's see what it did to the ring drag. How about that? Alright, so we're going back in the same hole, same piston, same lubrication, everything, right? Now these are fairly heavy rings, but I know before I couldn't push, I could beat on them, but I like to be able to just go boom like this. Now, let's just see if they'll... Well. It's pretty darn amazing. Yeah, I like talking to myself, guys. Alright, I'm going to put this cap on. Already got plenty of oil on it. Let's see, where's my little bearing drop? Okay, there it is. Should turn that the right way. Yeah, everybody's like, I don't have room to walk in this place. I'm not making that up. That's why I haven't made many YouTube videos. I am stopping long enough to kind of do this a little bit. You hear that rod? That is free floating. Okay. Let me get my torque wrench. We'll get that set back up for you. Here we go. Alright, so one thing I noticed is, let's go over here with it. I'm pulling the crank right here, guys. It might be reading 2 pounds at the most, but it's on 0 right there. And I'm going to keep on pulling it. So that you know I'm not lying. There's the piston as I go around. What do you think about that, guys? I know what you think about it. Pretty darn cool. Well, the whole reason... Let me get this off here. Fellas, do you honestly think I would go through this much effort if it didn't work? So, it doesn't matter if you believe me. I'm trying to help you. Trying to make you better engine builders, okay? There's the new hone that I just did by hand. Beautiful, perfect crosshatch. Versus the just, plain on out of the machine. Nothing wrong with the machine hone. Nothing wrong with it whatsoever. This is just putting the cherry on top, okay? And all you would do when you're done, lightly wash it with soap and water. And, oh God, I busted my arm open. And put your engine together, okay? Again, these are the Summit Racing Total Seal gapless rings that I showed you the other day. They are 15153 mil. In fact, they're right here. I had I set all the gaps on 24. This is your second ring, is your top ring. I hone all my rings to a bore, and they stay with that bore, okay? So, just another trick of the trade. What's 5 times 8? 40 pounds? 40 pounds. That's 40 foot-pounds on that torque wrench that it takes to roll that engine through with that hone. Well, now, will it get better once it breaks in? Yeah, it should. But guess what? So does the one I just did. It gets even better. The break-in material that comes off the cylinder wall, gets in oil, it won't be there. It'd be much cleaner break-in, less metal floating through your engine, more horsepower, less heat. What's not to love? And yes, we can do this in the machines. We don't have to buy a wide scope brush, but it's great to have this tool because you can do it to anything and pick up power. So, thought I'd show you that. All right, moving forward here, guys. All right, so now the question is clearly, so how much horsepower would theoretically 40 pounds of piston ring drag cost us? It's not that simple. The reason being, it varies. Piston ring drag, measured in foot-pounds, is, as we saw, let's just round up, say it was 5 pounds of resistance on the one piston due to ring tension and due to the cylinder hone itself. It changes. What does it change with? It changes with cylinder pressure. It changes with the piston speed. It changes with temperature. It changes with how much oil is on the cylinder walls. It changes with a lot of things affect it. But this is the second best method to know. What's the first best method? Dyno test. And we already know the dyno results. This is nothing new, but I think the general public doesn't think about this the way guys in NASCAR do because we are so restricted by rules. So we're constantly looking out there to try and figure out how to make our engine more efficient. But being the second best thing, the simple formula of horsepower equals torque times RPM divided by 5252, which is your constant, you can come to the conclusion that at 1,000 RPMs, with the torque being 40 foot-pounds, your constant, you're going to have a horsepower of 7.6 horsepower, which means that 40 pounds of 8 pistons resisting rotation at 1,000 RPMs would cost the engine 7.6 horsepower. And it gets progressively worse. As the 4,000 RPMs approaches, you're losing almost 31 horsepower. At 7,000 RPM, you're losing 53.3, and on and on. You saw that I was showing you the crankshaft. How do you get a crank that slick? Well, number one, the crank has to be straight. Number two, the main saddles in the block have to be straight. Number three, your bearing clearance needs to be correct. Bearing crush needs to be correct. Obviously, you need to have oil on it. And not only being straight, the crankshaft, but also the journals themselves need to be straight and round and not tapered. And then, lastly, I've talked about this before, is my bearing fitment. Making sure all my bearings are deburred. Making sure my saddles and my caps are deburred, so that when you put oil on the bearing, the crank is riding on the oil and not the bearing. Okay? Get the crank freed up. Start from there. By the way, put the cam in the block first. Okay? Put the cam in the block first. You're going to reach in there with your other hand and guide the camshaft in. It just makes sense, people. Final assembly. Cam goes in first, then the crankshaft. Now, we understand if you don't have the cam yet, okay. But to build an engine like that purposely, where you purposely don't put the cam in, what do you think? I don't even know. Just don't even bother telling me. This is something nobody talks about because they don't know to talk about it. I'm sharing it with you. Hopefully this will be worth your while. My optimal way to plateau hone is in the machine. I use the right stones, and then I use a carbide brush. If I don't have that, the Wiseco nylon brush is a great tool. You saw it with your own eyes. Now, how many strokes should you do? Well, I use WD-40 as a lubricant, and most likely you'll be anywhere from 50 to 60 strokes per hole. And you need to practice on an old block so that you can get the crosshatch pattern correct. That's key. Alright guys, I am wore out. I'm tired. Thank you for your thoughts and prayers of my dad. He is improving. He still has a long way to go, but he is improving. And yeah, that's it. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.